Thank you and welcome to CEO Business Africa, our latest interview. Talk to a lady who has been in this sector for many, many years. Patricia, just give us a bit, who are you and what do you do here?
Okay, so actually I've started to really reshape what I actually do.
Yes.
Because, you know, the official title is you're called CEO. But what is a CEO? Chief Executive Officer. What is that? What is an officer? What is a chief? What is executive? So I've started to unpack it. And one of the things that I am starting to like the sound of is that I'm actually the catalyst, the conductor. Oh, yeah. I love orchestras. I absolutely love orchestras. And for many years I used to study orchestras and ask myself, what does that guy in the front do and why is he so significant? And why do they become so important? Because actually it's the people who are producing the music who are what people come to see. But without that conductor, somehow all that doesn't come together. So indeed now, my new title that I'm starting to shape is that I am the conductor of a brilliant orchestra. Yes.
I've seen lots of CEOs kind of start talking about Chief Vision Officer, or is it something that is catching?
Vision is the next thing, and vision for me, look, what industry have you come into here? I'm in the creative industry. So the last thing I'm ever going to do is you have to create the next buzz. What really excites me about this role is really the possibility. It's also a space I really enjoy. I am a creative person by nature. I started as a marketer. That was my career at the beginning as a brand manager, Unilever, biggest global consumer company in the world. Did marketing for the first 18 years of my life, actually. Marketing and marketing director, etc. So really this whole space of consumers, insight, communication, advertising has been an area I chose to be in and I really enjoyed. Then of course getting to a space where now you figure out how that drives business and why it is so important to get that right to drive your business, became the next stage. And so for me, it's a combination of all those things. Here I am doing what I enjoy, which is really understanding consumers, communication, customers, driving great visionary ideas in terms of how we speak and how we drive the message, how we sell our services, how we sell our goods and everything else. And then doing it in an organization, which is a business. So it is two things that have all come together, which for me makes it a fantastic combination of the journey that I've been on.
To get to where you are, Patricia, has meant, we are just talking here and you have all these appointments, so many things to do in a day. So there must be some of the things that are internally in you to get to be that marketing, brand manager, marketing director, blah, 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 going up. What are some of the personal values that have really enabled you to step into greater roles?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I mean, I said this in another interview I did the other day for one of the other magazines. And I spoke about this what are some of the things that drive who you become? I think for me, it's always been a fear of failure.
What is WPP Scangroup? What do you do? Where are you in Africa?
Okay, so I'm always very excited to say this. And I say it in very many different words because it's that exciting. We are the biggest marketing, communications, advertising business in Sub-Saharan Africa. We are probably the only business in Sub-Saharan Africa. I mean, I'll ignore the South Africa as a country. We're the only business that's able to offer any individual, company, person, business, a full service. Full service meaning we can come from, strategy. What is the strategy you're looking for your communication, to developing that communication, to coming to the concept for that communication, to what is a PR and influence that you need, to what are the technology things that you need digitally to make sure your messaging goes out, we have that capability to offer all those things. And because we have all those, to buy your media in the right spaces across any single medium. So that is what really excites me, that we're actually able to do that. And increasingly now, we're going into the technology and the digital space with the products that we're creating that do a measurement of marketing, your performance of marketing, looking to see how do we map customer journeys through a product we call Optimus, marketing performance through a product we call Feed, you know, understanding when we buy your media, who are we buying, so that you're not just throwing mud on the wall and hoping that it sticks, because we work, we have this big regional research we call Audience Origins, which actually allows you to understand where the consumers are and what they're doing. I mean, it can't be any more exciting.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
But then now, if you look at Africa, West, Central, Eastern here, which kind of countries? Because even if you just talk about Sub-Saharan Africa, it's actually fairly big. I see in some of the countries you have fully owned companies, others are affiliates. Are there markets where you do things a bit differently, like let's say different from Kenya?
Yes, we have to. And in fact, just last week I was in South Africa because we're trying to pull together a more comprehensive as WPP. Now, we are majority owned by WPP, which is the biggest communication, advertising, all those things company in the world, right? And also one of the most creative, actually. This was reaffirmed at Cannes, which is where all the big awards happen. We were the best, won the most awards, and did everything. Now, if you're owned by a business like that, we're sitting down and saying, yes, when you go to the North American continent, everybody knows that WPP is this big conglomerate that has all these fantastic agencies that support you this way. You go to Europe, the same thing. You go to Asia, the same thing. You go to Southeast Asia, the same thing. What about Africa? Africa, we are known by our agency networks. Wonderman Thompson, Scanad, Ogilvy Africa, J. Walter Thompson, whatever. Those. How do we start saying that actually we're part of this big umbrella company that offers and has the ability to service you end to end in what you're doing? So from an Africa strategy point of view, that I think is going to be the big thing where we win. Because yes, as you said, we have businesses that we own wholly. We have businesses where we partly own. We have businesses which are affiliates, and trying to unpack all that so that we make sure we're doing the right things across all 57 markets is going to be very critical over the next 5 years.
What is the big opportunity of advertising and PR and all these strategy issues in Africa? How big is a pie and how fast is it growing?
Okay, let me give you some stats. It was a beautiful slide. I wish I was looking at it now, but I'll give you some of the biggest numbers. First of all, Africa is going to have the highest, whatever you say, we're going to have the highest growth in population. We're going to be the highest number of young people on this particular continent. Yesterday I heard another statistic which really amazed me, if I even drill down to Kenya alone, that we have the highest penetration of WhatsApp, imagine, in the world, okay? We know that these incredible trends that we have in Africa around the way people are using their mobile platforms and to communicate, all that is hitting Africa right now. Now, when you look at all the other continents, what's happening? Their populations are deacceleration. They're shrinking. They're getting older. We are continuing to grow, right? So the opportunity then sits to say that in the next 50 years, the biggest opportunities are going to come here for new things, because you're dealing with a nascent or a population that is hungrier, that is looking for new things. All the others will have been jaded, they'd have plateaued, they'd have everything else, but the opportunity is going to be left sitting here. Yeah, that is what excites me about Africa.
Now, what are the setbacks to the growth of the industry in Africa? What are we still grappling with?
Yeah, I think, God. Now, I, as I said, I'm trying this mindset of mine of constantly trying to say, don't look at the problem, look at the opportunity. So I'm going to try and pivot it that way, because actually a problem is an opportunity.
I like that.
So what are the opportunities that we have to grapple with and try and deal with? I think the first thing is making sure that penetration of the internet, for example, is everywhere. Because that's how people are going to speak, that's where they're going to talk. What you find is that in urban areas you have no problem. But if the bulk of the populations are still in less than urban areas, they are still consumers, they're still customers. We need to speak to them, because there'll always be clients and customers who want to speak to those people. So driving that is going to be incredible, which is what a lot of all these big tech companies have recognized and are trying to drive and to do, and what they're investing big time in trying to achieve that. So trying to unpack that, I think, is going to be, it's a challenge now. We figure out how we do it. The second thing is, whatever you say, our economies, yes, they're growing fast, but we still have what they call the Gini index, I believe is what they call it. Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with the term. The distance between rich and poor, unfortunately, continues to grow and widen. In this country of ours we're living in, as you can imagine, given the tough times we're facing now, it's going to grow. And it's the same, not just in Africa, it's the same around the world, given all the headwinds that we faced, which, you know, are not our making. Ukraine is not our making. But here we are, stuck with the impact of what that has on us. So I think that divide is going to be something that we will continue to grapple with. And unfortunately, what those things do is they create social, economic pressures on societies, on the way people live, on the way we set up and everything else. Big challenge. I think that the other thing that which is a pet topic of mine, is how as nations we start to think more about doing the right thing. I'm avoiding the word corruption, because corruption is now jaded in terminology. How people start to embrace the power of doing the right thing, and the impact of how doing the right thing can change a lot of things. Because when you do the right thing, a lot more people benefit as opposed to a few.
One of the biggest opportunities really that we've talked about is the African Free Trade Agreement. And what is the bigger picture there for you? And how can you accelerate some of your goals in this?
It's very interesting, because I sit in a number of organizations, or sitting in a number of situations and positions where people talk African Free Trade Agreement. When are we going to accelerate this Africa Free Trade Agreement? Look at the, what is the terminology for the airlines? Airline rights.
The
Open Skies Agreement. How do we take advantage of that? You know, travel, and another business I'm involved in, which does retail and everything else of women's wear and that kind of thing. How do we take advantage of it? Our ability to trade as a continent, I hear, is still less than 30%, if even not smaller than that. So for me, where I see the opportunity is this recognition that East, West, South divides start to break up. And we start to figure out how, yes, even recognizing that we have economic trading blocks, how do we set up to make sure we take advantage of those blocks? We set up infrastructure and structures that can take advantage of those blocks, because we have to serve customers and clients. From, actually, for us, it's more clients, and clients, of course, have got customers everywhere. But how do we start to structure our businesses, recognizing that? So when we have big regional players, or people who are trying to create a regional footprint, we have a structure that understands this is the way Africa is set up, but we have resources to make sure that we can harness and take advantage of that.
I think we've just gone through one of the toughest periods for humanity, COVID. Looking at the business of WPP Scangroup, how has that played out in the last 2-3 years? And how has that changed the field of advertising and whatever you do? What is the big opportunity out of it?
I think the biggest opportunity, let me start even from the office. Let me tell you, before COVID, nobody believes if you're working virtually that you are working. Is that a fact? I mean, I've worked in many multinationals where we'd come back to Africa, I'd work outside of the country, and they had flexi hours and everything else. When you come home, they're like, oh, we don't trust people here to do flexi hours. We don't know if they're working. We can't believe that they're working. Enter COVID. And suddenly you had to deliver, you had to work, you had to do everything. So I think what the pandemic did is it allowed us to recognize that we can be efficient and effective virtually. The systems that needed to be set up to be able to deliver work and everything happened. Yeah. The second thing I think that it did for me, which was the most important, is it started to accelerate trends which already existed. When I tell you this mobile penetration, and in fact, if you look at the trends now in terms of how people consume media, mobile, and you know, when I unpack mobile and internet, they're two different things. Internet is I've gone to my laptop, I've dialed down, you know, I have a Wi-Fi, I have whatever. But mobile is because I've got bundles, and I do that. It has completely exploded. It has grown. People consume TV, radio listening, advertising, all there. The next thing it has allowed, and this is where we're trying to support organizations to look at how they do this e-commerce even more. How do we communicate? How do we build e-commerce in a particular different ways? And a couple of our customers have some of those platforms which we try and support and build and everything else. And e-commerce has become the next thing. I am one of those people, I promise you, who I knew internet and buying things online was fine. But because I never knew whether it was going to fit me or not, I would never do it. Because I'm like, now I buy this, I'm not sure, I like to fit, I want to know whether it's going to work. Enter the pandemic, I was sitting in the house all the time, Instagram, this looks nice. WhatsApp, send, size this and this, 2 sizes, border comes, he waits, okay, now return this one, I pay you. Suddenly, all those things completely exploded. Let me tell you, I'm sure if you look at the food, the people, the Uber, the Glovos, all these people, how much they have grown. I don't have the numbers, but I can't imagine because I just observe from my house. I have a big challenge. Even though there's food, there's cooked, I've got 2, you know, young adults in my house. Permanently there's something coming. Food, permanently. Everybody, I'm like, but there's food, it's here. But, you know, Glovo has ordered, this has come, I'm feeling this. Next thing, it has come. So those are the trends that have been accelerated. And for us as an agency network, it's really understanding how we help our clients recognize a particular trend, harness that trend, and leverage it.
Now, when you talk about your customers,
our clients,
your clients, who is the kind of the client that you have, and what are they kind of knocking your door?
We have all clients. I mean,
what are they kind of looking for these days?
So, I mean, we're lucky in that we have clients from FMCG to financial sector to, you know, to the impact and what do you call them? The foundations and everything else. Bill and Melinda Gates, MasterCard, that kind of a thing. So I think for me, there's a mix. I mean, but increasingly what we're finding is that there are 2 things that are coming a lot. When you look at the foundation and the impact space, they're looking at how they amplify the sustainability agendas a lot more. Because, you know, we're having a conversation before we started this interview around how ESG sustainability is just such a big piece. So when you look at some of our business, if you look at our PR and influence businesses, one of the things I'm looking at is how really enhance our resourcing around, you know, that particular space. Health, very big. Sustainability, ESG, really communicating what people are doing. Very, very big space. So Hill and Knowlton resourcing there, Ogilvy PR really resourcing to drive that. The next thing is that they're looking for is how to amplify their communication on digital platforms a lot more. Yes, radio is still big, right? It will still be there, but digital is the explosion, and especially when you deal with the under 35. You know, if you're talking about that particular target audience, if you can't find a way of connecting with them digitally, you're going to lose out a lot. I mean, we've just received the latest research because we do a lot of research around where people are listening, what they're doing. I can tell you now, 18 to 25-year-olds, the biggest thing for them is podcasts. Podcasts. And I saw this research, I was like, gosh, this is validated. I have a 24 and a 26-year-old girls in my... The minute they get into the car, what podcast shall we listen to? The days have gone from music. It's no longer me. I'm the one who's trying to say, oh, yeah, hey, where is that? Oh, Nyashinsky. Oh, I want to listen. No. For them, it is podcasts. At home, when they're sitting around, podcasts. I tell them to clean up the kitchen, there's a podcast playing, So podcasts, imagine the power of that and the influence and the thought leadership you could drive with that particular space. So that's the next thing that they're looking for. How do we enhance? And then the other biggest thing, this thing called influencers. And I'll tell you why influencers are big.
Yes.
They're big because people now do not want to be told what to buy, what to serve, how to do, and whatever else. What they are looking for increasingly is content. Because remember, if I'm consuming advertising online, the minute that ad comes, I have skip ad in 4 seconds.
Oh, yes.
Don't I? So if I've created an ad, I have exactly 4 seconds to make sure the message is done before. I am the best one. Even as it's coming, I'm waiting for skip. Yeah. So you have to create content that the message comes through in 4 seconds in the event somebody doesn't want to stay and listen to your full gambit. So what is the biggest thing though that is selling things? It's content. And what do influencers do? Content. Because if I want to sell you a beautiful holiday and I start doing an ad and say, Juma, come here, this is my food, this is whatever, I'm going to say, oh my God, they pangaed it, they planned it, I'm sure when I get there, it's not going to be like that. But I have this influencer on Instagram at this place, I'm here now at, and wandering around, and they're sitting and they go to the beach and they come back, and I'm like, wow, so it's real. Because this is a real person, they're doing it, it's not set up, they're wandering around, so incredible. YouTube has become the biggest advertising channel as well. All right. So this afternoon I'm going to the YouTube event just to hear some of the stats. I was just reading the latest research on the impact of YouTube. I had absolutely no idea how the single biggest opportunity that YouTube presents. And yet I see it, but I don't recognize it. People absorb a lot of the content, the influence, whatever, on YouTube. So we are talking of a completely different world. And sure, the traditional still sits there. I mean, you saw during the election period, the 10, 15 minutes, okay, I'm exaggerating, before every news, all those ads, and you're like, oh my goodness, we're still doing this. So there's still space for that.
Do you still believe that really this omni-channel kind of space, you talked about radio, that radio is still big. Being magazine publishers, we kind of look like old age guys. Yes. But the omni-channel space, nothing goes away, isn't it? Yes. None of these channels goes away. Yes. Radio is still there. Yes. TV is still there.
They're still there, but their impact is getting less and less. That is where challenge. So you have to become even more targeted, even more precise with what you do with radio. Radio, the beauty of it is it's omnipresent. You go somewhere, people are listening to the background and everything else. And that's why now you find things like presenters becoming even more relevant, because it's the same thing. Imagine when I told you about the influencer. Yeah? Radio presenters are also influencers in their own right. So that's where radio still becomes relevant, because I listen to Maina Kageni, if that's who I listen to. Why do I listen to him? So if I listen to him, I'm listening to what it is in the background, whether it's present, whether it's a conscious listening or not. That is how I get the communication.
What about things like billboards and
billboards will still be there. I think I'm still stunned at how billboards are still there. Increasingly, they're becoming more using technology for them and everything else, and they move and everything. You show the videos, but billboards just fascinate me. I kept thinking by now they'll become less and less, but I think they'll always be part of our landscape because we like background stuff. We like things we see passive. Billboards are very passive communication. And because what they do is they're sending you a message insidiously, and it's there and it's there. And even if I don't pay attention today, because it is there, one day I'll look, next day I won't look, next day I'll say, what is, So there's that possibility. I think what if you ask me what is the biggest thing I have seen being in this business now 6 months, is that even more so now, data, as with everything else in the world, becoming more important. Strategy, and having people who really are strategic in their thinking becoming even more important. Because fortunately now, with and for our clients, we can start to become a lot more targeted in what we develop. When I first started marketing, you just did, we have TV and we have a radio, and you just did them and hope that somebody's going to listen. And eventually we started saying, oh, we have programs, let's sponsor this program because we have heard my target is listening to it. Now, actually, can be even more specific, because as I've said, you know an influencer, the sort of people they engage with, you can look at them, if it's a billboard, you know there's a road, people pass here, it becomes a lot more specific in terms of where you target it.
Sustainability. I think it's a big topic, and I think even within your group, there's always some kind of now by 2025, 2030. What is the big picture really for sustainability, especially in your kind of space, and how would you like to move forward with your customers?
I'll be very honest, we're only starting to think through now what is our big sustainability agenda and our ambitions going forward. But I think I alluded to it before we started this interview, that the biggest opportunity from a sustainability for us is we should be part of an economy that encourages less of anything that is not recyclable.
Oh, yes.
Yeah? So when we talk about the circular economy, we have the biggest opportunity to drive circular economy. I'm looking at these things, these banners I have here. We should be the ones encouraging the development of materials for these banners, so that when they're done, they go to do something else. Not just tarpaulin for the back of a truck, but can they be used to something? Can they be used for something else? The message and the conversation I was having around magazines, how do we start doing them on paper that is recyclable, or that is, first of all, what is the expression? Recycle paper as opposed to fresh paper. How do we start developing those kind of agendas? Why should we have things hard copy? Why should we not start having digital mediums? Which is why when I'm saying like billboards now, the digital medium ones are the ones which you start to drive a lot more, because those, in a way, you're not putting billboards and that paper and then where is it going to go? It has been made and everything else. So those, I think, start to become where we present a number of our problems in the office here. One of my agendas is in the next year, by end of next year, we're going to one campus, where I'm putting all the teams who sit here. In total, I have across the continent 560 about members of staff in all the different agencies in the different countries. But in Kenya, we're about 300 or so, 350, 380. The whole idea is to say we have all these businesses, Scanner, Ogilvy Africa, Group M, Hill & Knowlton, and plus all the businesses below them. I really, and the service, we need to be in one campus. The benefit of one campus, we could start to drive the economies of scale on things like, technology, savings on energy, etc. Creating a space where people are a lot more comfortable, ergonomic office working space, a space that is more conducive to virtual and hybrid working. So that for me is a very big agenda item, and also one that, in the world we live in now, we have to recognize this thing called people having the space. Space is a big thing. You can't be drive all the time, but you have to be in a working environment that gives you space. So if I want to go sit in the garden on or whatever and work and dream from there, you have to be able to, because that's the world we live in today. And even more so, this is an environment or an industry that should allow you to do that.
Now, I think you've already alluded to something here, because really I wanted now to go into the future. What your kind of investment priorities are in the next 5 years to hit some of those goals that you have, apart from the campus now?
So the campus is for to just create an environment that is going to really be the space where we can groom, incubate the best talent. I want to retain the best talent. I want to attract the best talent. I think we have the biggest opportunity to do that. Yeah. Past, maybe we're there, probably not there anymore, but for me, one of my biggest missions is to make this a place that people want to. And it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, I've been here 6 months, I've been drumming it. I was looking, we do a survey, which is around understanding where people are at. I've seen some shifts, but I'm still nowhere near where I'd like to be. I mean, the last thing I need is, I'd like to have only maybe 5% of everybody who works here, maximum 5, and even 5 is a lot, saying I would never recommend anybody working here. You see what I'm saying? So those are some of the measures for me which I look at and which are very critical, and it's figuring out how I drive that in the organization. And part of this campus also becomes, because where you work also, it's a great environment. You want to go there, you feel happy to go there and to work there. So that's one thing. But if we look at the business itself, I'm very clear, really investing in the key talent, the people. Very, very fundamental. An environment that allows people to feel that, you know, mentally well-being, you know, that they can work here and it makes sense. And then from a technology point of view, really looking at how we are prepped and ready and we have the right resources to create the technology for the future, advertising technology support. So Optimus, building on this product I spoke to called Optimus, Feed 2.0, which is marketing performance management tools. How do we build those? Because data is going to be the edge that we are going to have. The research on the media, the way we buy, so we're advising our agency, really investing through the technology bit is going to be a big thing. PR and influence, as I've spoken to, very, very big place again. And in PR and influence as well, looking at where the opportunities lie. Sustainability, I've spoken to you. Health will always be a big agenda. Do we understand health and what are the needs and support we need for people who are looking to drive that agenda across the continent? Another big investment area for me. So yeah, in a nutshell, those are some of the spaces that I'd like to look at.
Now, being based in Kenya, probably there is a bit more engagement with clients and companies that you work with. So you are in these 20 plus countries. Are there some that you kind of feel, you know, 5 years, maybe get to understand the market better, bigger opportunity that you'd want to take advantage of?
Yeah.
Which ones would that be?
So if I look at the businesses now, which excite me, now, for example, our Ghana business has been doing very well, despite the downside of the economy. So I would like to spend a little bit more time there, actually, because, you know, it is one of the areas in West Africa, great pillar. We have a business which we have a percentage ownership for in Nigeria. Again, now starting to grow and really explode from a positioning. But if I look right here at home, Tanzania, I am really, if there's a business, I'm very convinced we have to figure out how we get a stronger foothold. It's Tanzania. Because Tanzania now is a new world. With a new dispensation, it's a lot more welcoming and open to business from, you know, external business and everything else. So for me, if I was to ask, where's the single biggest opportunity? I think we need to look at Tanzania. Uganda, on the other hand, is also another one, following on that. And then finally, for me, one which we've said is a slower burn, but have to figure out how we engage a lot more is Zambia.
Wow. Okay, very inspirational, and I think those are markets, even really for us, we look at those markets very keenly. Now let's have the last question, really. What is the future? I know you've done a lot, Patricia, but is there something you kind of feel, you know, there's this thing I follow, I got it through the BBC one day, some organization, now you can teach. So after you've done everything else in life, somebody becomes a teacher. Is there something you'd want to do after?
I definitely would. You talked about teaching. I sit down and I say, you know, in the future, I really would like to see how, in a more structured way, I could share my experience and exposure and pass it down. What is it? Pay it forward. Yes, to the next generation and everything else. I haven't figured it out. I'm still trying to work out what I want to do. I still also toy. I have got a very good friend who's gotten a fantastic fellowship for a whole semester teaching at Yale. I'm like, oh my goodness, I would do anything. I was at Stanford before this, you know, and I was working for Stanford University at the business school through the Stanford Seed program for 6 years. And I sit down and say, one of my ultimate dreams was to go back and do a semester, get a program which I could teach there, you know, an exec ed for a semester, and just enjoy creating the content sharing, learning, sharing experience, and just doing that, because I really enjoy it. I won't lie, I really enjoy it. I enjoy both sides of my life. I mean, my life has been corporate, commercial, as you know, and then 6 years where there was no corporate or commercial, no target. The targets was around impact. How much impact? How many businesses have you touched? How have they grown? How many more people have they employed? Fantastic. Now I'm back again to the numbers game. What are your numbers? Have you grown? Is your profitability? Your margin looks this way. What's happening to your expenses? Still very exciting. So I have two parts of me, which I have enjoyed, and I think that is life, doing the full circle. Now I think as I finish or going forward, again, it will be around really wrapping up again around this impact space and seeing how making a difference really looks like in my own way. Yeah.
Wow. Patricia, thank you for the interview.
Yes.
We really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been fantastic. And thank you for the time.
Okay then.
Yeah.